Hello everyone, back tuning into the penultimate GWV Sunday Round-Up. So I've only got one more of these to do next week, once this one is out of the way. And then we shall be resting the GWV Sunday Round-Ups for the rest of the year as we move on into winter updates. First one of those starts on the 1st of September, and then we'll do one winter update every week right way through to the end of November. And we'll be covering a lot of the same things within the winter updates that we're doing GWV Sunday Round-Up, so there will be no point in doing both the Sunday Round and also the winter update, as we just be repeating ourselves. So getting very close to the end of GWV Sunday Round-Up for another year, and also again to the end of the autumn updates as well. So the first video released today was the 9th autumn 2019 analogues update. That video is here on the homepage at GWV. Just scroll down a little bit and you will find it above the pollen count. So that's the last one of those. We won't be doing any more analogues updates now until we release the autumn forecast, which is going to be released on Saturday 31st of August. So that's getting ever closer as well. There is one more season one roundup to do for the autumn. So no autumn analogues next week, but we did announce exclusively in the 9th autumn update that Solar Sunday is going to be with you next week. So had to postpone that Solar Sunday at the start of the month. But it's back and it will be with you next Sunday. So that's going to be quite exciting, I think, that we'll bring back Solar Sunday for the last time. That'll be for the last time with that one as well. Yeah. So I'm going to get on with the GWV Sunday Roundup for you very shortly, just to say that that autumn update will be placed on the autumn updates forecast page later on today, probably tonight around 7-8 o'clock. There'll be a written summary goes with that as well. And also coming up later on this afternoon, we're going to have the E70F Metro France and DWD long range model, and that's going to take us through the autumn and towards the winter months as well. So quite an interesting day's updates to GWV. Hope you're finding them informative and entertaining. So we're going to start off with the radar picture from the weather outlook for this GWV Sunday Roundup, and we see that we've had 2 areas of rain, really, or 3 areas of rain this morning. There's showers almost anywhere, but we've had one persistent area of showery rain running across the south through this morning, so that's been quite heavy. Also had some quite heavy showers across the northwest of England, and more particularly heavy showers across western parts of Scotland and coming down into Northern Ireland. Some very vibrant colours in with those downpours. I don't think there's any lightning flashing away yet, but no reason. But we could find some lightning developing with these downpours through the course of this afternoon. There's quite a bit of volatility within the atmosphere. This is the precipitation forecast from Euro 4 at metroseal.fr. It's for 10 o'clock in the morning, so recording the video at nearly 20 to 11. Pretty good representation, I think, of where we currently are. Perhaps not quite as many showers across Wales as was being forecast at this point. And the area of rain we've got across the south is a little bit more limited compared to what's actually happened with that rain. It's actually a little bit more widespread and further north compared to where that's showing. About right with the showers across Scotland and down into northwestern parts of England. Through the course of this afternoon, we find these showers transferring eastward, so don't take the areas of showers too literally with this. Almost anywhere could catch showers, but you see there are more of them in the north and west generally, fewer of them in the east. But even in the east, you could get showers through the course this afternoon. They could be quite heavy. You see these very intense colours, very vibrant colours going into the reds and pinks on the scale. So that's sort of indicating torrential rain, possibly thunderstorms in some parts of northern England going up into Scotland this afternoon, also parts of North Wales as well. Showers rumble on into the evening before tending to sort of fade a little bit overnight, fading back towards western coastal areas perhaps, and into tomorrow we'll do it all over again. More heavy showers pushing eastwards. Again, don't take the areas that are having the showers there too literally. It's just an indication that generally showers will be quite widespread tomorrow, even across southern parts of the country. There is a chance of some big downpours through the course of tomorrow. As you get through to Tuesday, I think we'll find the shower becoming a little bit more restricted to more northern parts of the country on Tuesday, and more southern areas will start to turn a little bit drier, and that should be the trend through the week. But certainly today, tomorrow, big showers around. There could be thunder as well, so watch out for those downpours. Having said that, of course, as ever with showers, some places will miss them and stay completely dry. This is a view of the solar disk on our side of disk today from solarham.net. We have another spotless disk on the solar disk today, so there's no sunspots whatsoever. So activity therefore is at very low levels and is expected to remain at very low levels for the next 3 days. We haven't got the GWV solar activity tracker this week. We're keeping it back for Solar Sunday, which, as I say, we will be releasing next Sunday. Will be Solar Sunday. Right, moving on to the oceans. So this is how the oceans are looking in terms of the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. Or were looking last week. We did last week's GWV Sunday Round-Up, I suppose I should say. So I've got the ENSO region just here, the equatorial Pacific Ocean, got the northern Pacific over there, and we've got the North Atlantic over there. That's our 3 areas of interest. So that's how things were looking with the oceans last week. This is how the very latest is looking at up to as of the 15th of August. So dealing with the ENSO region, first of all, well, going back to last week, that's how things looking through the ENSO region last week. This is how things look now. If anything, those sea surface temperature anomalies have cooled a little bit again through this eastern part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. So particularly around there, I think we have seen a slight cooling compared to last week. That's again how things looked in this region just here last week. This is how things are looking this week. I think this week the temperature anomalies have cooled further. It is in the eastern part of the actual Pacific Ocean, but we've got these colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies that do look a little bit like the signature of La Nina, although there's no actual forecast at the moment going for La Nina, but to me that does look pretty La Nina-esque. I have to say it extends down to these cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies off the coast of Chile too. That tends to be one of the things that we look for before we get to La Nina, the cold waters gathering there off the coast of Chile. So that looks rather La Nina-esque in the east part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. But further west, it's still relatively warm. We have seen some slight cooling just there also in that region, I think. But going further west into this western part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean just here, it is a little bit warmer there. So overall, I think sea surface temperature anomalies have cooled a little bit over the past week in that eastern part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, and it does look rather La Nina-esque in the eastern portion of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, I have to say. Going further north into the northern Pacific, again, that's how things looked last week. This is the very latest, so still pretty warm here across this northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean, although a little area of cooling has started to develop just there. But overall still significantly warmer than average through that northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean. In the North Atlantic, we continue to have this rather warm area just here to the south of Greenland. Size of Greenland actually warm on average. It's very warm up here now on the Canadian side of Greenland. Still pretty warm on the Iceland side of Greenland as well, and to the south. Underneath that, we've got this cooler area just here. Let's get rid of that. And we've got this cooler area just here. It's warm there. And then it's warm just here. But tropical Atlantic is about average. So not a classic tripole, this. For a classic tripole, you'd expect this area, yes, to be warm. This cooler area just here would kind of back over towards the eastern part of America, so it would be cool there as well as there. And then it would be warmer going further south into the tropics. That would be kind of like the classic tripole. So it's not a classic tripole, but nevertheless, that area of warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of Greenland is very significant, and we haven't seen it as warm as that, I don't think. We will check this when we get into winter updates, but I don't think we've seen it as warm to the south of Greenland as we have it right now in the sort of late summer period since 2012. I think go back 2012, the last time it was as warm to the south of Greenland as it is right now. So quite significant, and no doubt playing a part anyway in this ongoing negative North Atlantic and negative North Atlantic Oscillation and negative Arctic Oscillation. In the shallower waters through the Med, well, it's cooling down from the Bay of Biscay a little bit. That's associated with a cool area that started off around Newfoundland. North Sea still looking quite warm. Norwegian Sea looks quite warm too. In the Med, generally a little bit warmer than average, although less so than what it was compared to the earlier part of the summer. The temperatures have cooled down a little bit through the Mediterranean, many parts of Europe, so those sea surface temperature anomalies just beginning to ease back a little bit from that those very warm sea surface temperature anomalies that we had in those shallower waters a few weeks back when it was very, very hot back in June and in July as well. I mean, it is still warm through the bed, obviously, because it's still summer, but it's not the extreme heat, I don't think, that we had earlier in the summer. And so therefore, because those are shallow waters and they're prone to rapid temperature changes as the air temperature rises and falls, then we're seeing those sea surface temperature anomalies just easing back a little bit through those shallower waters like in the Med and in the North Sea. This is Solar Oscillation Index, so this is an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state in the South Pacific. This is from Queensland Government, which I think is part of Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. So when it's measuring the air pressures between Darwin in Australia and Tahiti in the South Pacific, when the SOI is in its negative phase, the atmospheric setup is reflecting El Nino. When the SOI is in its positive phase, the atmospheric setup will be reflecting La Nina, will be reflecting a cold event. To really get El Ninos or La Ninas taking off, you need to have the ocean sea surface temperature anomalies in the equatorial Pacific Ocean coupling with the atmosphere. When that happens, then these events can start to spiral. If you get the atmosphere and the ocean sort of fighting against one another, then you can get these events really struggling. So let's see what the very latest is from Bureau of Meteorology. So we go down to the beginning of August, so we did have some very negative numbers there. The atmospheric setup was reflective of El Nino 2nd, 3rd, 4th of August, coming out at -14, -18, -11. Then we go further up, though, and we find some very positive numbers. I think we talked about this in last week's Sunday Roundup. We did have a period through the 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th of August when the SOI went very, very positive indeed, +16, +19, +22, +20. That is the atmosphere in the southern Pacific Ocean, very, very strongly reflective of a La Nina, of a cold event. Well, in recent days, the SOI has gone negative again. So at the moment, the atmosphere is sort of swinging between El Nino and La Nina state. So we have the 13th of August at -11, the 14th of August at -17, the 15th of August at -19, and the 16th of August at -16. So those numbers are reflective of an atmospheric state that would be in an El Nino type setup. However, the last couple of days, the 17th and the 18th of August, come out at +7.46 both. So that's gone more towards the La Nina side of things. I think very, very gradually the atmosphere is starting to move towards more of a La Nina type state, actually. It's a very gradual process, and it is still swinging back into El Nino type setup at times, and quite strong El Nino type setup as well. But very, very gradually, as we're going along, I think the atmosphere in the Pacific Ocean is beginning to move into more of a La Nina state. You can see from the 30-day average, which is this red line for the SOI, how it has trended up really quite significantly over the past month. That's where it was on the 20th of July at -14 as the 30-day average. That's where it is now. It's actually gone up to this 0 line, so that's kind of like neutral. It is moving quite quickly in towards potentially weak La Nina territory. If it gets up sort of +2, which is just there, +4 perhaps, then that will start to be shown that the atmosphere is moving into weak La Nina territory. I would have thought before much longer they're going to have to change the scale on this, because the scale is starting down here at -16 and only going up to +2. I reckon they'll have to open this up a little bit and start to show more positive SOI values on this scale just here within the next week or two, if this trend continues. It certainly has been a very significant lift up in the 30-day average of the SOI over the past month or so. So I say gradually we're moving, seem to be moving into an atmospheric state that's reflecting landing. Actually, we've done it quite quickly, really. That is quite a substantial and significant rise in the SOI from where it was on the 20th of July to where it is nearly on the 20th of August. Well, so we'll keep a very, very close eye on that as we go through into winter updates in particular. Right, so let's have a look at what's happening with the Siberian and Eurasian snow cover and Arctic sea ice. So in terms of snow cover, well, there's no snow cover at all across Siberia. It's completely snow free at the moment. You'd expect that. We're still in August. Within the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll probably get 1 or 2 white patches starting to appear. Initially, they will be more up here in the very northern part of Siberia. And that will be the beginning of the snow cover season. Of course, over the next couple of months, this whole area of Siberia and Russia will fill up with snow. It's one of the things we keep an eye on in the winter updates, how quickly that snow advances across Siberia and Russia, because there's a feedback potentially into a rapid expansion of snow cover across Russia and Siberia and an enhanced Siberian high if it happens very quickly through October. Of course, an enhanced Siberian high can be a blessing or a curse, depending on what you want out of your winter weather. And we'll talk more about that in the winter updates, of course. Over in the Arctic, the melt season is continuing apace. So this yellow area where we've got Arctic sea ice, you can see big melt season is taking place this year. Still got some ice just there. That's going to go in the next few days. And I would have thought this yellow area will, in about 3 weeks' time, be restricted to around there. So more of this and probably just here is going to melt too. This is how we are comparing at the moment to recent years. This is from National Snow and Ice Data Centre. So the grey line is the long-term trend. So, of course, we are in the melt season for Arctic sea ice. We bottom out, dates on the bottom of the chart, so we bottom out sometime in early September, just there. Usually around the 1st to the 2nd week of September is when we reach our low for Arctic sea ice. Let's put in 2019. So you can see where we are. We are way under the long-term trend. We're just there right now in terms of total Arctic sea ice extent. So let's put in 2012. That's the death spiral year, of course. That's when we had a big melt out in the Arctic, and we continue to be very, very close to 2012. We are on a par, definitely, with 2012 at the moment. That's the red dash line. You see they have converged and continue to converge as they have been throughout this season. A couple of weeks ago, we was actually under 2012. We have now converged with 2012, so we're on a line with 2012. It could be that this is just the start of this melt season starting to pull up a little bit, and maybe in the end we will do something like that and not quite reach the depths of 2012. We shall see, but at the moment we're on a par with it. But a couple of weeks ago he was actually underneath we was actually doing worse. We had less ice than at the same point in 2012. Just put in a few of the more recent years, so that's 2018. So we're under 2018. You see how most of these years, as I put them in, most of them are on a par with 2012 through sort of July into August, but then they pull away from 2012. They don't go into that massive spiral of melting that we had in 2012. That is 2016. That's 2015. All of these years sort of pulling away from 2012 as we get towards the bottom of the melt season. That's 2014, and that's 2013 as well. Those two blue lines just there. So we are certainly having a very, very big melt season in terms of Arctic sea ice this year. Will we continue to stick with 2012? Will we eventually just pull up from 2012 and not quite reach the depths that we did in 2012, or could we actually beat 2012? It's all up for grabs, and we'll find out in the next 4 weeks or so, 3 to 4 weeks. But yes, certainly a really big Arctic sea ice melt season this year. Very big melt season indeed. Probably partly connected to the blocking that we have had this summer. So the next thing to look at is the Arctic oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line shows where we've been with the Arctic oscillation going right way back to May. Red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. So you see how the AO has been trending negative throughout the summer. The last time it was sustained positive was back in the spring. That's the 1st of May just there, so this takes us back to kind of like the middle of April. That's the last time the Arctic oscillation was in sustained positive territory. Since then, we've generally been trending negative. Yes, we've had a few days where the AO has gone to neutral or positive, but not many of them. Generally, we've been in a negative state with the Arctic oscillation through this summer, which tells us we have had high levels, appreciable levels of high pressure over the North Pole and over the Arctic. Remember, it is always the weather that drives the index, so the reason that the index has been negative in terms of the Arctic oscillation is because we've had that high pressure over the North Pole and over the Arctic and around Greenland. And of course, when you've got high pressure over the Arctic, you're going to have the sun beating down on the ice day after day, and that is going to warm the seas up, and you will get these big meltings. The last death spiral year for Arctic sea ice was 2012, and again, that one had very appreciable levels of northern blocking. And interestingly, 2012, of course, as I said, let's go back to this, 2012 also had those very substantially warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of Greenland. So you see how all of these things are kind of interconnecting with one another. Where we are right now with the Arctic oscillation is just there, so we're close to neutral actually at the moment, but there's no sign of the Arctic oscillation going back to positive territory before the end of August. This does take us more or less to the end of August now with the GFS ensembles. There's very little sign that we're going to pull out of this negative AO period, so we will continue to keep appreciable levels of high pressure up over the Arctic over the next couple of weeks. Certainly there's no sign that we're going to see a flip in the AO in the next couple of weeks and go into positive territory. At the same time, of course, the NAO has also been in a very prolonged negative state. So again, the black line here shows where we've been with the NAO. The red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. We've been in a very prolonged negative NAO period too. This is measuring the pressures in the North Atlantic. So when the North Atlantic oscillation is positive, you're going to have a strong area of low pressure around Iceland, and you'll strengthen the Azores high. In winter, that is a westerly signal, a positive area, and it's kind of like our default setup in the winter as well. That's why our prevailing wind direction, particularly in winter, is west or southwesterly, and we tend to have mild winters. Conversely, though, when the NAO is negative, then you're going to have a weakened high pressure around Iceland, and sometimes you will have high pressure, you have a weakened low pressure, I should say, around Iceland, and sometimes you will get high pressure around Iceland. And also you will weaken the Azores high, and sometimes you will get low pressure around the Azores, and that's the kind of pattern that we've been having through this summer. The last time the NAO was very positive was back in the middle of April. Since then, we've basically been continuously negative with the NAO. We did just go a little bit positive with the NAO there. That's around when we was having that very hot weather back in the final week of July. But other than that, the NAO has been solidly solidly in its negative phase. That's where it is right now, still negative, although not as negative as it was earlier in August. It looks like for a day or so we may actually move the NAO up towards neutral or very weakly positive, just for a couple of days perhaps in the next week. But then you see it's dropping away again. So we do get these. I mean, the atmosphere is always going to try and get itself back to its default state. And the default state for the North Atlantic is a positive NAO setup with low pressure on ice and high pressure through the Azores. So the atmosphere will always try to get itself back to its default setup. So you see how we have the very negative NAO just there. I mean, it lifts up a bit, but then it drops back. And the same thing happens just here, lifts up, and then starts dropping back. And again, just there, late July, lifts up. It does actually manage to get itself very weakly positive, but then it drops back once again. It looks like we're having one of these periods over the next few days where the NAO is going to try to get it, or the atmosphere is going to try to get itself back to its default setup. So we just managed to claw our way into slightly positive territory of the NAO, but then again it's dropping away singly as we go into the last week of August and possibly to the opening days of September. Signs that the NAO, if anything, could be starting to trend more negative once again. So there's no sign of an end to this blocking type pattern that we have had through this summer. And so obviously we're going to keep these appreciable levels of high pressure going up over the North Pole and up over the Arctic. We are likely to see further and continued serious melting of the Arctic sea ice over the next few weeks as we reach the bottom of the melt season, probably in the second week of September. And then, of course, the sun is returning back to the equator. The air temperature will be cooling down so quickly that whatever the weather pattern is doing, the refreeze will begin in the Arctic, probably from around the middle of September. Right, let's do some forecasting. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. Next couple of weeks, the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Manchester. So we're pretty cool with the upper air temperatures at the moment. We're going to stay cool for the next few days too. Over the second half of the week and into bank holiday weekend, there's the lift up in temperature. It's looking quite modest now, this lift up in temperature. It will get a bit warmer from Thursday through Friday to Saturday. I think maximum temperature will probably be somewhere like London on Saturday afternoon. We might get to around 28 degrees, which is about 82, 83 Fahrenheit. But after that, it looks like the temperature drops away again a little bit. Nothing drastic, nothing to be overly alarmed about, but certainly as we go through the last days of August to the opening days of September, it does look as though temperatures will be returning closer to average. Quite a lot of dry weather. I mean, it's not continuously dry, so showers are likely. Even over bank holiday weekend, we don't completely get rid of the precipitation spikes. There aren't that many of them, so I think the trend over the next week or so is going to be drier, but then it might start getting a bit more unsettled again over bank holiday weekend. Maybe then going more unsettled around the start of September, but of course that's a very, very long way out, and that's really in the unreliable time frame. Temperature anomalies are close to average from the 18th to 26th of August. So for England and Wales, a little bit warmer than average. For Scotland, Northern Ireland, probably a little bit cooler than average, if anything. It's certainly not a big deviation either way. No sign of anything particularly hot. I know there's been newspaper reports that we're going to have a 3-week heat wave and it's going to get really, really hot again. There's absolutely no sign of that at the moment. It could happen. We could get it very hot. It was only, 2016 when we saw the temperature reach 34 degrees. 94 Fahrenheit in the middle of September in 2016. So it certainly can get really hot. I mean, it's possible that it could do, but there's no sign of that in the next week. Let's put it that way. That's a temperature anomaly, and it certainly doesn't look anything more than a little bit above average. Precipitation anomalies for England and Wales, bit drier than average. Western Scotland still coming out a little bit wetter than average. The trend has been and continues to be towards slightly warmer and drier conditions over the next week, but nothing overly dramatic. That's how the GFS is looking for Wednesday then. It's a bit of a north-south split. On Wednesday, high pressure is building into the south. Low pressure is out to the northwest of the country, bringing in this westerly flow. There'll probably be rain across western Scotland, but southern England likely to be dry. Through Thursday to Friday, the high pressure strengthens. So we get towards the bank holiday weekend, going more towards high pressure taking over, bringing drier and warmer conditions. That lasting into Saturday. Saturday could be the peak of the temperature. As I say, we might get to around 27 or 28 degrees somewhere like central London. But then the GFS wants to start turning things a bit more unsettled later into Bank Holiday weekend. This is Sunday. It's a week away, so it's quite a way off. It might not come out quite like this, but the GFS is signalling a trough then starting to move in from the Atlantic. That would lower the temperature a bit. Excuse me, and it would also bring some showery outbreaks of rain too. That's Bank Holiday Monday, potentially a little bit on the unsettled side for southern and eastern parts of the country. Could be showery rain, maybe a little bit of thunder suggested there, perhaps turning a bit drier up to the north. As we go into or beyond Bank Holiday weekend, so this is Tuesday 27th of August, and this takes us to day 10. Which is Wednesday the 28th of August. High pressure's reaching back in from the Atlantic. It's not particularly warm. We bring the air in from the North Atlantic. The air's coming in from the northwest, but it's probably mostly dry there. As we go in towards the closing days of September, still this ridge is to the south, low pressure is up to the north, and then a more definitive push of low pressure as we get through to the start of September. This is Sunday the 1st of September. Low pressure then moving in from off the Atlantic. Looks like it's starting to turn quite unsettled and bringing in some pretty chilly and quite strong actually northwesterly winds as we reach the end of this GFS run, which is to Tuesday the 3rd of September. But of course, again, that's very long way off. It's like 2 weeks or more away, so it is really unreliable. GM looks like that high pressure is building into the south on Wednesday. Low pressure is out to the northwest of the country. Up towards the end of the week, this high pressure strengthens. So that's Friday. High pressure is taking over, bringing increasingly dry and warm weather for the second half of the week. Looks very pleasant indeed. That's Saturday and that's Sunday, so then still this idea, or it does have this idea that it's all within the GFS of a bit of a weakening of the high pressure over the Bank Holiday weekend, so this will certainly be dropping showery rain into central and northern parts of the country by next Sunday. In the south could still be mostly dry and quite warm. That's Bank Holiday Monday, so the low pressure has cleared, or the trough I suppose, has cleared away to the east. And winds are turning into the northwest then as high pressure pulls out just to the west of us. That could bring showers to eastern parts of the country. A lot of dry weather though, with that for Bank Holiday Monday, but the main thing is that there would be quite a sharp drop in the temperature. However, as we get towards day 10, the high pressure is sort of coming back. So this is to Wednesday the 28th of August, back under that ridge of high pressure. That suggests the final days, the closing days of August could bring a fair amount of dry and warm weather with them. ECMWF is looking like that. So again, on Wednesday, we've got the ridge building into the south, bringing probably mostly dry conditions for the middle of the week to the south. Still looks quite unsettled, though, to the north and to the west. Through to the end of the week, so low pressure continues to be close to the north of Scotland, bringing some showery rain there. But through England and Wales, the high pressure again is strengthening. That brings dry and warm conditions for the end of the week. Saturday looks very nice. This is Saturday 24th of August, first day of the Bank Holiday weekend. Loads of dry weather there away from the northwest of Scotland, and temperatures potentially reaching mid to upper 20s Celsius. I would have thought around 28 is achievable with that, which as I say is around 82 or 83 Fahrenheit, somewhere like central London. So certainly a very warm start to Bank Holiday weekend. That Sunday, this trough drops into the north then, so that could just allow the atmosphere to start wobbling a bit, maybe showers breaking out on Sunday next week. It's a week away though, so it's quite a way off. That's Bank Holiday Monday. This is the best of the three, I think, for Bank Holiday Monday. The ridge comes back in from the southwest. Temperatures would have lowered a little bit, but under the ridge, away from the north of Scotland, where it's not a bank holiday anyway, that will be a mostly dry and fine late summer Bank Holiday Monday, and pretty warm too. Very, very pleasant conditions. And as we go up to day 10, ECM keeps that high pressure going up to day 10. Wednesday 28th of August. So again, that would allow mostly dry, fine and warm conditions to prevail up to day 10. Just perhaps signs, if we could roll on another day or so, I think we would probably then see this ridge starting to pull out into the middle of the Atlantic, and this trough up over to the north of the UK and towards Scandinavia will probably begin to move southwards and start to introduce cooler and more showery northwesterly winds perhaps. So that would be if we could just roll on another day or so. But as it is, up to day 10, the ECM looks mainly dry and quite warm. Finally, CFS V2. So these are the 500 millibar height anomalies broken down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 18th to 24th of August. The coming week with below average heights up to the north of Scotland. So it's still a little bit unsettled, but gradually over time, high pressure is building to both the south, from both south and the southeast, starting to break us out of that unsettled weather. This is week 2, which is the 25th to the 31st of August, above average heights to our east and also to our west. Notice continued very extensive northern blocking towards Greenland. Flow and jets doing something like that, so not entirely settled, could still be a little bit on the showery side through this final week of August, but overall not too bad. A fair amount of dry weather would be expected. This is week 3. It's the 1st to the 7th of September. Today the CFS is placing above average heights over the top of the country, so that suggests the first week of August probably mostly dry, settled and quite warm, sends a jet stream off up to the north through the first week of September. And then week 4 is the 8th to the 14th of September. And we're beginning to see the high pressure slipping southwards bend, probably starting to reintroduce more of a westerly and maybe turning things a little bit more unsettled there through the second week of September. So, CFS certainly suggesting that the first week of September could be quite dry and warm today. However, for the month as a whole, it continues to look quite cool and unsettled, really. This is the 700 millibar height anomaly for September today. This is what it's showing, and it has above average heights in the middle of the Atlantic going north, below average heights as a trough centred over top of the country, and the jet streams push southwards as well, so that would be quite a cool and unsettled signal actually for west of Europe for September. It does have a lot of high pressure to the northeast, but it's too far away to have a great deal of influence on our weather. We would be quite cool and quite unsettled with that. Temperature anomalies for September very close to average, so they very rarely show anything other than average or warmer than average on these charts. Notice quite a cool, chilly month across much of North America. And finally, precipitation, that is coming out close to average as well. Although if we come over here, you notice it's a little bit wetter than average through the North Sea. So it does suggest, based on the 700 millibar height anomaly, it does suggest quite an unsettled September is likely overall, despite the fact it might start off reasonably dry and warm. Right, so that's it for the penultimate GWV Sunday Roundup. There's only one more to do next week, and then that'll be it for the GWV Sunday Roundups. We will then be releasing the winter updates every Sunday morning from Sunday the 1st of September, and they will carry on through the autumn till we get to winter forecast that will release probably at the end of November or beginning of December. I haven't looked at the exact date when that will be yet, but it's always around that sort of time. Right, so that's it for that. Don't forget to check out the autumn analogues. That video is here on the homepage. It'll be placed on the autumn updates later on today. That's the last one of those. And also we've got the E7F Measure France DWD season model update coming up for you this afternoon. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.